This is the theme of the dream. This is the theme of the dream. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the next thrilling episode in the continuing saga of the next chapter of the installment of the section of the Legends of the Jews, brought to you by the strange reading cow from another planet, or I'm on another planet in outer space, reading you bedtime stories by our old friend Louis Ginsberg. Ah, the descendants of Adam and Lilith. You remember they got together early on. When the wives of the Ives, is that a Freudian slip? When the wives of Lamech heard the decision of Adam that they were to continue to live with their husband, they turned upon him, saying, O physician, heal thine own lameness. They were alluding to the fact that he himself had been living apart from his wife since the death of Abel. For he had said, Why should I beget children, if it is but to expose them to death? Though he avoided intercourse with Eve, he was visited in his sleep by female spirits, and from his union with them sprang shades and demons of various kinds, and they were endowed with peculiar gifts. Once upon a time, there lived in Palestine a very rich and pious man who had a son named Rabbi Hanina. He knew the whole of the Torah by heart. When he was at the point of death, he sent for his son Rabbi Hanina and bade him, as his last request, to study the Torah day and night, fulfill the commands of the law, and be a faithful friend to the poor. He also told him that he and his wife, the mother of Rabbi Hanina, would die on the selfsame day, and the 7 days of mourning for the two would end on the eve of the Passover. He enjoined him not to grieve excessively, but to go to market on that day and buy the first article offered to him, no matter how costly it might be. If it happened to be an edible, he was to prepare it and serve it with much ceremony. His expense and trouble would receive all their recompense. All happened as foretold. The man and his wife died on the selfsame day, and the end of the week of mourning coincided with the eve of the Passover. The son in turn carried out his father's behest. He repaired to market, and there he met an old man who offered a silver dish for sale. Although the price he asked was exorbitant, yet he bought it, as his father had bidden. The dish was set upon the Seder table, and when Rabbi Hanina opened it, he found a second dish within, and inside of this a live frog, jumping and hopping around gleefully. He gave the frog food and drink, and by the end of the festival he was grown so big that Rabbi Hanina made a cabinet for him in which he ate and lived. In the course of time, the cabinet became too small, and the rabbi built a chamber, put the frog within, and gave him abundant food and drink. All this he did that he might not violate his father's last wish. But the frog waxed and grew. He consumed all his host owned until finally Rabbi Hanina was stripped bare of all his possessions. Then the frog opened his mouth and began to speak. Rabbi Hanina, he said, do not worry. Seeing thou didst raise me and care for me, thou mayest ask of me whatever thy heart desireth, and it shall be granted thee. Rabbi Hanina made reply, I desire naught but that thou shouldst teach me the whole of the Torah. The frog assented, and he did indeed teach him the whole of the Torah, and the 70 language of men, besides, all 70 of them. His method was to write a few words upon a scrap of paper, which he had his pupil swallow. Thus he acquired not alone the Torah in the 70 tongues, but also the language of beasts and birds. Thereupon the frog spoke to the wife of Rabbi Hanina. Thou didst tend me well, and I have given thee no recompense, but thy reward will be paid thee before I depart from you. Only you must both accompany me to the woods. There you shall see what I shall do for you. Accordingly, they went to the woods with him. Arrived there, the frog began to cry aloud, and, and at the sound all sorts of beasts and birds assembled. These he commanded to produce precious stones, as many as they could carry. Also they were to bring herbs and roots for the wife of Rabbi Hanina, and he taught her how to use them as remedies for all varieties of disease. All this they were bidden to take home with them. When they were about to return, the frog addressed them thus: May the Holy One, blessed be He, have mercy upon you, and requite you for all the trouble you took on my account, without so much as inquiring who I am. Now I shall make my origin known to you. I am the son of Adam, a son who he begot during the 130 years of his separation from Eve. God has endowed me with the power of assuming any form or guise I desire. Rabbi Hanina and his wife departed for their home, and they became very rich and enjoyed the respect and confidence of the king. Seth and his descendants. The exhortations of the wives of Lamech took effect upon Adam. After a separation of 130 years, he returned to Eve, and the love he now bore her was stronger by far than in the former time. She was in his thoughts even when she was not present to him bodily. The fruit of their reunion was Seth, who was destined to be the ancestor of the Messiah. Seth was so formed from birth that the rite of circumcision could be dispensed with. He was thus one of the 13 men born perfect in a way. Adam begot him in his likeness and image, different from Cain, who had not been in his likeness and image. Thus Seth became, in a genuine sense, the father of the human race, especially the father of the pious, while the depraved and godless are descendants from Cain. Even during the lifetime of Adam, the descendants of Cain became exceedingly wicked, dying successively, one after another, each more wicked than the former. They were intolerable in war and vehement in robberies. And if any one were slow to murder people, yet was he bold in his profligate behavior, in acting unjustly and doing injury for gain. Now, as to Seth, when he was brought up, and came to those years in which he could discern what was good, he became a virtuous man, and as he was himself of excellent character, so he left children behind him who imitated his virtues. All these proved to be of good disposition. They also inhabited one and the same country without dissensions, and in a happy condition, without any misfortunes falling upon them until they died. They also were the inventors of that peculiar sort of wisdom which is concerned with the heavenly bodies and their order, and that their inventions might not be lost before they were sufficiently known, they made 2 pillars. Upon Adam's prediction that the world was to be destroyed, at one time by the force of fire, and at another time by the violence and quantity of water. The one was of brick, the other of stone, and they inscribed their discoveries on both, that in case the pillar of brick should be destroyed by the flood, the pillar of stone might remain and exhibit these discoveries to mankind, and also informed them that there was another pillar of brick erected by them. Enosh. Enosh was asked who his father was, and he named Seth. The questioners, the people of his time, continued, who was the father of Seth? Enosh, Adam. And who was the father of Adam? He had neither father nor mother. God formed him from the dust of the earth. But man is not the appearance of dust. After death, man returns to dust, as God said, and man shall turn again into dust. But on the day of his creation, man was made in the image of God. How was the woman created? Male and female he created them. But how? God took water and earth and molded them together in the form of a man. But how? Pursued the questioners. Enosh took 6 clods of earth, mixed them and molded them, and formed an image of dust and clay. But, said the people, this image does not walk, nor does it possess any breath of life. He then essayed to show them how God breathed the breath of life into the nostrils of Adam. But when he began to blow his breath into the image he had formed, Satan entered it, and the figure walked. And the people of his time, who had been inquiring these matters of Enosh, went astray after it, saying, "What is the difference between bowing down before this image and paying homage to a man?" No difference. The generation of Enosh were thus the first idol worshippers, and their punishment for their folly was not delayed long. God caused the sea to transgress its bounds, and a portion of the earth was flooded. This was the time also when the mountains became rocks, and the dead bodies of men together, and the dead bodies of men began to decay. And still another consequence of the sin of the idolatry was that the countenances of the men of the following generations were no longer in the likeness and image of God, as the countenances of Adam, Seth, and Enosh had been. They resembled centaurs and apes, and the demons lost their fear of them, of men. Yep, that's what it says. But there was still more serious consequence from the idolatrous practices introduced in the time of Enosh. When God drove Adam forth from paradise, the Shekinah remained behind, enthroned above a cherub under the tree of life. The angels descended from heaven and repaired thither in hosts to receive their instructions, and Adam and his descendants sat by the gate to bask in the splendor of the Shekinah, 65,000 times more radiant than the splendor of the sun. This brightness of the Shekinah makes all upon whom it falls exempt from disease, and neither insects nor demons can come nigh unto them to do them harm. Thus it was until the time of Enosh, when men began to gather gold, silver, gems, and pearls from all parts of the earth, and made idols thereof 1,000 parasangs high. What was worse, by means of the magic arts taught them by the angels Uzzah and Aziel, they set themselves as masters over the heavenly spheres, and forced the sun, the moon, and the stars to be subservient to themselves instead of the Lord. This impelled the angels to ask God, "What is man that thou art mindful of him? Why didst thou abandon the highest of the heavens, the seat of thy glory, and thy exalted throne in Arabot, and descend to men who pay worship to idols, putting thee on a level with them?" The Shekinah was induced to leave the earth and ascend into heaven. Amid the blare and flourish of the trumpets of the myriads of angel hosts, the fall of the angels, the depravity of mankind, which began to show itself in the time of Enosh, had increased monstrously in the time of his grandson Jared, by reason of the fallen angels. When the angels saw the beautiful, attractive daughters of men, they lusted after them and spoke, "We will choose wives for ourselves only from among the daughters of men, and beget children with them." Their chief, Shemhazai, said, "I fear me you will not put this plan of yours into execution, and I alone shall have to suffer the consequences of a great sin." Then they answered him and said, "We will all swear an oath, and we will bind ourselves separately and together, not to abandon the plan, but to carry it through to the end." 200 angels descended to the summit of Mount Hermon, on which owes its name to this very occurrence, because they bound themselves there to fulfill their purpose on the penalty of Haram. Anathema. Under the leadership of 20 captains, they defiled themselves with the daughters of men, unto whom they taught charms, conjuring formulas, how to cut roots, and the efficacy of plants. The issue from these mixed marriages was a race of giants, 300, 300, 3,000 ells tall. Man, I could make a mistake that big. Who consumed the possessions of men. When all had vanished, and they could obtain nothing more from them, the giants turned against men and devoured many of them, and the remnant of men began to trespass against the birds, beasts, reptiles, and fishes, eating their flesh and drinking their blood. Then The earth complained about the impious evil doers, but the fallen angels continued to corrupt mankind. Azazel taught men how to make slaughtering knives, arms, shields, and coats of mail. He showed them metals and how to work them, and armlets and all sorts of trinkets, and the use of rouge for the eyes, and how to beautify the eyelids, and how to ornament themselves with the rarest and most precious jewels, and all sorts of paints. The chief of the fallen angels, Shemhazai, instructed them in exorcisms and how to cut roots. Armaros taught them how to raise spells. Barakel, divination from the stars. Kalkabel, astrology. Ezekiel, augury from the clouds. Arachiel, the signs of the earth. Samsawil, the signs of the sun. And Siriel, the signs of the moon. What do they think of next? While all these abominations defiled the earth, the impious Enoch lived in a secret place. None among men knew his abode, or what had become of him, for he was sojourning with the angel watchers and holy ones. Once he heard the call addressed to him, Enoch, thou scribe of justice, go unto the watchers of the heavens, who have left the high heavens, the eternal place of holiness, defiling themselves with women, doing as men do, taking wives unto themselves, and casting themselves into the arms of destruction upon earth. Go and proclaim unto them that they shall find neither peace nor pardon. For every time they take joy in their offspring, they shall see the violent death of their sons, and sigh over the ruin of their children. They will pray and supplicate evermore, but never shall they attain to mercy or peace. Enoch repaired to Azazel and the other fallen angels to announce the doom uttered against them. They all were filled with fear. Trembling seized upon them, and they implored Enoch to set up a petition for them and read it to the Lord of heaven, for they could not speak with God as aforetime, nor even raise their eyes heavenwards, for shame on account of their sins. Enoch granted their request, and in a vision he was vouchsafed the answer which he was to carry back to the angels. It appeared to Enoch that he was wafted into heaven upon clouds, and was set down before the throne of God. God spake, Go forth and say to the watchers of heaven who have sent thee hither to intercede for them, verily it is you who ought to plead in behalf of men, not men in behalf of you. I, what? Why did ye forsake the high, holy, and eternal heavens to pollute yourselves with the daughters of men, taking wives unto yourselves, doing like the races of the earth, and begetting giant sons? Giants begotten by flesh and spirits will be called evil spirits on the earth, and the world will be their dwelling place. Evil spirits proceed from their bodies because they are created from above, and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They will be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits they will be named. And the spirits of heaven have their dwelling in heaven, but the spirits of the earth, which were born upon the earth, have their dwelling on the earth. And the spirits of the giants will devour, press, destroy, attack, do battle, cause destruction on the earth, and work affliction. They will take no kind of food, nor will they thirst, and they will be invisible. And these spirits will rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them, since the days of murder and destruction and the death of the giants, when the spirits went forth from the soul of their flesh in order to destroy without incurring judgment. Thus will they destroy. Thus will they destroy without incurring judgment. Thus they will destroy until the day when the great consummation of the great world be consummated. And it's going to be with a big consummation. And and now, as to the watchers who have sent thee to intercede for them who have been aforetime in heaven, say to them, you have been in heaven, and though the hidden things had not yet been revealed to you, you know worthless mysteries, and in the hardness of your hearts you have recounted these to the women. And through these mysteries, women and men work much evil on earth. Say to them, therefore, you have no peace. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the Mysterious Reading Cow show of bedtime stories from outer space on another planet for children to help them sleep. And tune in again next time for the next thrilling episode, Enoch, Ruler and Teacher. Until then, goodbye.